There has been some interesting theories going around about the Origin SMP that I've seen discussed amongst the community, the majority of which have been trying to discuss the background and the origins of the Origin SMP itself. One of the more common links that I've seen amongst the community is linking it back to the Dream SMP. I've been looking around at this theory for quite a while now, trying to break down the details on how this would even function as a proper theory within and of itself. But recently, after Phils is saying that they wanted to make a Wither-based origin for Techno, and S Major discussing the idea of this theory on stream, I decided to dig further and bring out a proper theory idea and bring it to you guys today, and discuss how everyone would rank it to their current origin in the Origin SMP. Of course, before we get this started, if you're new around here, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below as it extremely helps out. You can always undo it on a later date if you don't want to stay around, and also leave a like to help the video do better in the algorithm. Either way, let's begin. As I said before, the idea of this theory came about via a way to try and explain the backstory behind the origins and the powers that everyone have within the server. As most people in this server have origins and powers that can be linked back to the character and whom they were in the Dream SMP, as well as the majority of people in the Origin SMP thus far all were originally members of the Dream SMP, aside from an Accept 2. So of course, let's run through some of the players that I was able to theorize a proper explanation to how they got their powers and how they got to the current point that they are at in the Origins SMP. Starting off with Philza somehow found his way in the end, breaking the world of the Dream SMP to become the only person to raid the end, and gathering the goods within the end itself to power himself up. It is said that Philza used this newfound strength and power of flight in order to avoid some of the more dangerous parts of the world throughout the Apocalypse. Over the length of years of adapting to the Elytra and making himself to be the best variant of an Elytra flyer that he possibly can be, he would develop ways in order to summon a wind gust of 1,000 speed that would allow him to jump up to extraordinarily heights to launch himself and fly. He would develop a deep understanding of the combat style and arts of flight, allowing him to become a far stronger and more dominant fighter in the air, becoming far more powerful than he ever was when he was just a simple human. He would then learn how to make himself faster, to avoid the enemies, to avoid the apocalypse, and to avoid all this danger. And due to the sheer speed and the ability of his flight, he decided to cut any form of powerful armor in order to become faster in his flight, opting instead for much weaker but lighter to use armor instead, becoming the variation of Philza that we see in the Origin SMP today. Rambo has always been part Enderan for the longest time, just he had never any form of control over this side of him. These powers and abilities that he would withstand from the Enderan genetics that would be inside of his life force and blood would always be forever out of his reach and out of his control. But with the years and time that he would spend with these abilities, he would learn to find a way to control that part of himself. And over time, as he got better at controlling the Enderan side of his own life force, he would become to fuse it into one, almost destroying any remnant of the human that was once inside of Rambo, becoming a full-on Enderan-based life form, learning how to teleport, how to use his powers to his utmost advantage, and learning so many new things about himself that would improve how he would exist. Of course, would be adding in the weaknesses that came with his Enderan form that was overcome by his human form. Rambo would ultimately leave his human self behind and become a full-on Enderan. Nikki, who was always one who loved the oceans and the deep dark depths that were hidden down beneath, would disappear into them throughout the apocalypse. Of course, at first, breathing underwater was an impossibility, but with the use of many water breathing potions and turtle helmets, she would find a way to continuously live underwater and never having to surface ever again. Over time, as she became adapt to the ocean lifestyle, she would slowly evolve to learn better abilities that would become more functional and useful in the dark, adjusting her eyesight to be able to see better of the deep dark depths of the ocean, becoming faster and more agile in the water, adapting to human lifestyles and speed of above land to function far more proper underwater, allowing her to become a much faster and better version of herself. And over time, her dependency for the water breathing potions, for the turtle helmet, and any other forms of things that she had to use in order to be able to breathe underwater would slowly fade away as she would begin begin to form newly created gills, becoming closer and closer to a form of a human fish before he became one with the ocean herself. Jack Manifold would disappear to the dark confines of the Nether in order to avoid whatever this apocalypse of the Dream SMP might have been. He would soon need to find a way to adapt to the sheer heat of the Nether as he began to live longer and longer time spans in the Nether, needing to stay out of the overworld for longer periods of times than the last. Jack Manifold would come across a blaze colony that was willing to accept him as one of their own and teach him the ways of the Nether. After years of learning and training with these so-called blaze, Jack Manifold would slowly become more and more a part of their culture. He would slowly build his tolerance to be able to burn, and in order to use that heat and fire to his advantage to cause more damage to his foes. And once the tolerance was strong enough, they would throw him into the lava to allow him to build his tolerance of the sheer magma that would normally burn through normal human skin. He would slowly but surely become one with the blaze himself, but of course what comes with the sheer burns of this light of the lava would ultimately cause any form of water to ever touch his body to burn with sheer magnitude of absolute pain due to how much the heat has become one with him. Ghostbur would eventually get revived in the Dream SMP. After months of being a ghost, he would learn new things and understand so much more about human life. He would learn how to manipulate things into his favor and become far wiser doing so. He would slowly find more and more ways in order to retain some of the phantom benefits of his ghost form once had. And after a long time frame of experimenting, he would become one with the phantom form, being able to switch in and out of this phantom ghost-like form at the matter of a whim. But one of the massive side effects that became with this is that his skin became 10 times weaker and paler to the point where it would burn in just standing in the sun for a short amount of time. Technoblade has two scenarios within this theory due to the human origin that he currently sits as well as with the potential of a Nether origin in the future, but explaining both of them down is pretty easily. Technoblade survives the apocalypse in the human form as well, simply put it, and Technoblade never dies. And being one of the most powerful humans in the Dream SMP, he would find a will and a way to live through the apocalypse and make it out the other side. But the theory behind the Wither variant of the origin behind Technoblade is much more interesting. It is said that after years upon years of fighting withers and the deaths of hundreds of thousands of wither skeletons for the heads of these withers, he would slowly begin to get corrupted by these withers, and as he killed more and more wither, he would slowly become more and more a part of the wither course of life, growing slightly taller, becoming slightly more stronger, slightly more menacing, over time becoming a far more advanced and more complicated form of a wither skeleton. Not so much of a wither skeleton, but not as strong as an actual wither itself. Sneeg was once part of an underground civilization that was never seen nor never known before this apocalyptic event. Instead, this underground civilization spent years in hiding away from the humans that roamed the earth until most of them were absolutely brutally killed by this apocalyptic event. Thereafter of which, this civilization decided that it was safe to go above ground and feed on the remains of the dead in order to grow their own race and improve everything else. Major is born in the stars and fell upon this world from the sky, hence the reason why he's called a starborn. That one was a pretty simple explanation in this theory. At this point in time, this theory doesn't exactly have good ways to cover how Tommy, Tubbo, Schlatt, Slimesicle, or Fundy even made it to these points. But as all theories go, not everything is going to be worked out from the very get-go, but there might be some cool ideas that will get brought in by other people in the future that I might cover. Either way, that's all from me. Make sure to leave a like and hit the subscribe button down below, but either way, I'm going back to the dark place of which I once came. Goodbye.